Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishwabham Sabharajikataya Stotazatasi Simadesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Om Vishwabham Sabharajikataya Stotazatasi Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 8th Canto, Chapter 20, Text 34. Chapter Bali Maharaja surrenders the universe. Padang dvitiyam kramatas-trivastapam Navai tritiyaya tadiyam anvapi Uru kramasyang grihir uparyato Maharjanabhyam tapasa param gata Padang dvitiyam kramatas-trivastapam Navai tritiyaya tadiyam anvapi Urukramasyang kriya uparyato Maharjanabhyam tapasa param gata Padam dvitiyam kramatas-trivastapam Navai tritiyaya tadiyam anvapi Urukramasyang kriya uparyato Maharjanabhyam tapasa param gata Vaishnavis. Padam, step. Dvitiyam, second. Kramata, advancing. Trivishtapam, all of the heavenly planets. Na, not. Vai, indeed. Tritiyaya, for the third step. Tadiyam, of the Lord. Anu api, only a spot of land remain. Urukramasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who performs uncommon activities. Angri, steps occupying above and below. Upari, upari, higher and higher. Ato, now. Mahat Janabhyam. Then Maharloka and Janaloka. Tapasa, that Tapaloka. Padam, beyond that. Gata, approached. Translation. As the Lord took his second step, he covered the heavenly planets, and not even a spot remained for the third step, for the Lord's foot extended higher and higher, beyond Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and even Satyaloka. When the Lord's footstep exceeded the height of all the lokas, including Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, his nails certainly pierced the covering of the universe. The universe is covered by the 5 material elements, Bhumir, Apo, Nalo, Vayu, Kang. As stated in the Shastra, these elements are in layers, each 10 times thicker than the previous one. Nonetheless, the nails of the Lord pierced through all these layers and made a hole penetrating into the spiritual world. From this hole, the water of the Ganges infiltrated into this material world, and therefore it is said, Padanaka Nira Janita Janapavana. That's Avatara Stotra 5. Because the Lord kicked a hole in the covering of the universe, the water of the Ganges came into this material world to deliver all the fallen souls. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 20th chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, entitled Bali Maharaj Surrenders the Universe. Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Urukrama. the Lord is known for his uncommon activities. But you could say, what's so uncommon about taking steps? But the steps of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are incomparable. The first thing we must understand in approaching the science of God, the science of the Supreme, is that everything Krishna does is inconceivable, yet there is such sweetness to his activities, especially as Swayam Bhagavan Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. His partial expansion of Vamanadev is demonstrating allegiance to Indra and the Devatas. Bali Maharaj's forces had conquered the heavenly planets. And Bali Maharaj, his name is Bali Daityaraj. He's the king of the demons. What are the demons doing? Overrunning the heavenly planets. Not only did they overrun the heavenly planets, but Bali Maharaj put his demon mates in charge of the moon, the sun, and other planetary positions in the universe. So it was quite a scene. How were the Devatas, who are always favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though the Devatas are attached to material enjoyment, they are servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Servants with a desire to enjoy and rule. Therefore, they're in the material world. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the first stop beyond earth that Narada Muni makes in his quest to find the greatest recipient of the Lord's mercy, the first stop is the heavenly planets, Indra. First, Narada Muni talked to a king in South India. Narada Muni had heard this king in South India is the greatest devotee. But when he talked to the king said, oh, nothing compares to Indra in the heavenly planets. So Narada Muni went to the heavenly planets to talk to Indra. And who was there with Indra? Upendra, Vamanadev. Because both Indra and Sri Vamanadev come from the womb of Aditi. So they're brothers. Upendra, Sri Vamanadev, is the younger brother of Indra. So Narada Muni told Indra, you are so glorious. Look who is your younger brother. But Indra was not very enthusiastic to hear about his own glories. He pointed out, look how precarious is my position in the heavenly planets. Time and time again, demons overwhelm the heavenly planets and take the posts of the Devatas. Look what's happened. Look what Bali did. How can you say that it's so glorious, our position in the heavenly planets? What does Krishna warn in Bhagavad Gita? Chine punye marchalokam vashanti. Those who are smart, those who are actually materialists, they want to go to the heavenly planets. A real materialist is not like the fools we have on earth today, who know nothing about how to actually enjoy material life properly. A real materialist thinks, how can I live in such a way that I get the maximum pleasure in my next life? Because this life is already a done deal. I'm living out my karma in this life, but what kind of karma am I making for the next life? So Krishna warns in Bhagavad Gita, Abrahma bhuvanaloka punar arvatina arjuna. No. Dukkalayam vashashvatam. From the highest planet to the lowest planet, all are places of misery. Now, do we really believe that? No, we are on a quest for security and comfort. But such things cannot be had for more than a flickering moment in the material world. But we are so easily bribed by a few seconds of temporary happiness. And then we think our life is successful. So here in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the first volume, you have Indra saying, look, Narada Muni, it's not the way things seem. We have troubles in the heavenly planets. So you would say, well, we don't mind a little trouble here and there, as long as we get the opulences and enjoyment of the heavenly planets, and that time of our stay there will go on and on and on. Even though it will end, it's still going to be a long time. We're so easily bought off by a few trinkets. Just like in the history of New York City, Manhattan, the island of Manhattan, one of the most expensive real estate areas in the world. It was purchased by the Dutch from the Native American Indians. Purchased by the Dutch for some bracelets. Trinkets. Oh, we'll give you the trinkets, they told the Aboriginal Indians there. They called them Indians in no relation to Bart. We'll give you a few trinkets, some nice flashy tin jewelry, and you give us the island of Manhattan. So in the same way, material nature offers us a few trinkets, and we are so attached. So Indra is giving testimony. If you want material enjoyment, go to the heavenly planets, but it's not so secure even here. And then Indra explained that it seems that just for the sake of me, Vamanadev tricked Bali Maharaj. But look how he got the heavenly planets back from Bali. Look how he did it. He did it in such a duplicitous way. In other words, showing me that showing Indra, showing me as Indra, I'm no big deal. I'm not worth an honorable battle. Vamanadev did not fight an honorable battle. He tricked Bali Maharaj. That's because I, Indra, have no real value. And then look what Krishna did to me. He stole the Parijata tree. First a flower and then a tree. Making me seem so insignificant. When you look at the second canto of Bhagavatam, chapter The Lord in the Heart, there Shukadeva Goswami warns, don't be bewildered by talk of the heavenly planets. That's real materialism. Don't be bewildered by the heavenly planets. What we have today, as I said, is not real materialism. It is animal life. Yet we become bewildered by it. We become bewildered by money, fame, sense gratification. Even though it's temporary, I don't care. That's our position. Everyone else is doing it. Why not me? Where's my share of the temporary delights? And there's a fear that I may die before I get my share of the glory, my share of the pleasure. There's this notion that if you sort of get some of what you want in this lifetime, you'll be able to die in peace. In New Zealand recently, one 67-year-old man was president of the local bikie club, motorcycle, you know. And he's out riding on the road with his friends, his fellow bikers. And he met with a fatal accident. He collided with a car. And so what did the media say? He died doing what he loved. He was riding his motorcycle, his Harley, He's riding his motorcycle in the company of his mates. He died doing what he loved. Never mind that he died. Look at what he was doing. This is the ignorance that encases society today. So Bhagavatam is addressing all levels, especially aided by Srila Prabhupada's purports. A real materialist is concerned about the heavenly planets. That's why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita tells Arjuna, happy are those Kshatriyas, those warriors, for whom such a battle opportunity comes. Because if you win the war, you enjoy the earth. If you lose the war, you go to the heavenly planets immediately. Happy are those warriors who have such an opportunity. Of course, Krishna is not advocating that you go to the heavenly planets. He's using various arguments on different levels to persuade Arjuna to participate in the battle of Kurukshetra. Arjuna's real reason for participating will be that Krishna wants him to do it. But Krishna is giving you an overview of what a real human civilization is about. A real human civilization involves duties, obligations, but not self-concocted duties and obligations. That's what Arjuna wanted to do. He wanted to concoct his own duty. I shall not fight. Better I walk away, because no good will come about either of my options. If I fight, I may kill all those who are against me, but we're related. They're relatives. If I lose the war, that's also bad. So either way, there's no point to it. Therefore, I'm opting out. I'm not going to do my duty. So Krishna has to lecture him on what is real duty. And this is an important point for us, because most of you are very duty obligated. Most of you are very responsible people, raising your children, trying to raise your children to be duty conscious and responsible. It's a very difficult task in this day and age. So have sympathy for your children. They're growing up in the darkness of ignorance. Their only light is their Vaishnava culture, their Vaishnava Sangha. So don't be too hard on them, because you probably don't know what it's like to grow up surrounded by such darkness. Yet the more light you arrange for the children, the more chances they have to make it out of the darkness, to not succumb to the darkness. So this notion that one life is all you get is destroying the world. Now there's a more mild version of this notion that one life is all you get. There's like a, how do you say, nonchalant attitude. That means a casual attitude toward the next life. Yeah, there could be a next life. There probably is a next life, but all you have to do now is be as good as you can according to your own standard of goodness, and then what happens in your next life will happen. This is almost as bad as thinking there is no next life. I'm living a good life as I see it. I'm living as my parents raised me and taught me. I'm paying my taxes. Mostly. I'm being good as one can be in this day and age. Surely, if there is a next life, there'll be good things happening to me. This is almost as bad as being an atheist. This casual attitude, lackadaisical attitude, means very lazy attitude. Let whatever happens, happens as long as I'm doing my duty as I think my duty is. So Arjuna was about to be irresponsible. We explained yesterday, Arjuna is forgetting that his body and abilities belong to Krishna. He's thinking, these are my arms. This is my warrior ability. And with my arms, with my warrior ability, I'm going to serve according to my concoctions. So the whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita, as we explained yesterday, is to revive Arjuna's memory that his mind, body, and senses, his abilities all belong to Krishna. In the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that everywhere are his ears, eyes, etc. Everywhere in the universe. You can understand that in two ways. The supersoul is present in every heart and every atom, but also the living entities are everywhere in the universe, and they are Krishna's parts. So they're supposed to act harmoniously. That's what Krishna means when he says, everywhere are my ears, eyes, etc. Everywhere means the living entities are everywhere, and their activities with their body and senses are meant to be aligned with Krishna's purposes. So it's a very important question that we ask ourselves. Where does our sense of duty come from? Who told us to be responsible in this way and that way, that we should do this, we should not do that? Once you understand what your prime duty is, then everything else in your life becomes clear. So we had the case of Bali Maharaj. We talked about the reasons ISKCON gave him for not giving anything to Vamanadev, the dwarf Brahmana boy. But Bali Maharaj is going to respond after some deep thought. So we discussed yesterday why Bali Maharaj hesitated. He took a time out, so to speak. Let me think about this. What's going on here? I have a guru who says don't serve Krishna. Very bizarre situation. Generally, if you disobey the guru, you get an adverse reaction. But this so-called guru is saying, don't serve Krishna. Don't give everything to Krishna. If I take that kind of advice, what kind of reaction will be in store for me? So I've got to think about this and take a decisive position. So he called time out. He was deliberating. And sometimes in life we have to do that. Rather than rush into everything, we have to think about, where am I going? What's my goal? What is my real duty? And in deliberating like that, it always helps to have wise associates, good counsel. So we were discussing yesterday how the wealth of the Vaishnava is guidance. The more we have a guidance culture, the more the wealth is circulating. Because in everyone's life, there'll come these moments of decision. Should I go left? Should I go right? Should I do this? Should I do that? The more guidance you have, the more wealthy you are. Bali Maharaj had the good fortune seeded into him by his grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj. Bali Maharaj is an example of Kripa Siddha, someone who became perfect by the mercy of a devotee. He's not Sadhana Siddha. He's like Shukadev Goswami. He's like the Yagnapatnis, the wives of the Brahmanas, the ritualistic Brahmanas in Braj, in the area of Braj. They became perfect by the mercy, special mercy. Somehow or other, the Yajnik Brahmanis, the wives of the Yajna Brahmanas, somehow or other they associated with people from Braj, and they became influenced in that way. And Shukadeva Goswami, by the mercy of Vyasadeva, became perfect. So similarly, even though he didn't go through the regular sadhana practices, Bali Maharaj became perfect by the mercy of Prahlad Maharaj. The process goes like this. In the presence of his grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj, Bali received the seed of pure bhakti. And then when Bali Maharaj stood in front of Sri Vamanadev, that seed of pure bhakti sprouted into prema. So Bali Maharaj, as soon as he saw Sri Vamanadev, he's absorbed in pure love. He's absorbed in prema. But he's putting on a whole show for his demoniac mates. We talked about this yesterday. Because he didn't want them to think he was immediately betraying them by giving everything to Vishnu. So he had this dialogue with Śrīmad. He seemed to think about what Śrīmad was saying, but actually there's no way he was going to do what Śrīmad said. Don't give anything to Vishnu. But for the sake of his demoniac mates, his cronies, Bali Maharaj had to offer some rationalizations based on things that demons can understand. And what can demons understand? Money, power, fame. So Bali Maharaj said, well, at the time of death, you lose everything. Great demon leaders have lost everything at the time of death, except their reputation. So if I can act in such a way that my reputation will be eternal, then let me do that. He's not a name and fame man. But he's speaking in this way to pacify his demoniac fellows. He's a pure devotee by the mercy of Prahlad Maharaj and the appearance of Sri Vamanadev. But he's seemingly offering reasons based on name, fame, power, and glory. Of course, we don't understand this in the age of Kali. Look, Bali, your reputation may last, but you'll be dead. Why do you care so much about what your reputation is when you'll be dead? That's the way it is these days. Right now, you got to get it while you can. Your duty is to get as much as you can before death comes. Whereas a higher version of materialism is to think, I'll be dead, but my reputation will linger. And some or other, I'll be pacified. One famous saying is, in this life, the only thing you'll leave behind is your story. That's all. And you're supposed to be satisfied with that. I often tell the story of when I was 14, my father sat me down to have a talk about what is the ultimate goal of life. And so he said, son, what do you think is the goal? I said, well, Dad, I'm just 14 and I haven't figured it all out yet. He said, I'll tell you what the goal of life is. He was an administrator of the New York City Police Department, so very authoritative. I'll tell you what the goal of life is. The goal of life is to leave some tracks in the sand when you're gone. Do something that people will remember you after you're gone. So I said, but Dad, I don't understand. Where do you go when you're gone? Son, you've missed the point. That is not the point. Just leave some tracks in the sand when you're gone. But where do you go when you're gone? Oh. Then my mother came and said, leave him, just leave him, let him be. So yes, Bali Maharaj is presenting reasons that since I'll die, if I act in such a way that I have a good reputation, that'll be the best thing. There are so many warriors who seized upon an opportunity to die in a battle, and in that way they get their fame. But rarer still is the opportunity to give charity in a way that your fame will be eternal. So I'm going to act in such a way for reputation. And then he made a logical point that, look, don't you know that all wealth, he's telling this to Śrīkracharya, don't you know all wealth is temporary? I'm going to lose it anyway. So if I can get some better situation of fame by giving this Brahmana boy what I'm going to lose anyway, why not do that? I'm going to lose all my power and money at the time of death. But if I can acquire fame and glory by doing it, by giving what I'm going to lose anyway, then I should do that. So this is not a pure devotional reason. This is calculation. Okay, Krishna, if I do this for you, what are you going to do for me? If I do this for you, I can see, I hope that you'll do something for me. This is business. What Prahlad Maharaj calls Vanik Seva. Merchants motivated, mercantile motivated seva. This is not devotional service in the best way. So Bali Maharaj also pointed out, look, there are different ways you can lose money. See, Bali is very practical. There are different ways you can lose money. You can lose money through business. You can lose money through intoxication, prostitution, gambling. But if you become poverty-stricken, if you lose all your money by giving in charity to an appropriate person, your fame will be celebrated on and on and on. So if I'm going to lose my money, let me lose it by giving not only to a proper person to receive the charity, but this Brahmana boy. Bali didn't reveal to the demons that he knew the Brahmana boy is the Supreme Personality God. He said, this Vipra, if you give charity to any kind of qualified person, just think of your glory. And here I have the opportunity not only to give charity to a qualified person, but this all-attractive Vipra, this all-attractive Brahmana boy. And then Bali Maharaj also gave examples from Puranic history. In other words, he's telling Śrīkracharya, others have made such decisions as I am going to make. Others have sacrificed their whole life. Dadichi, several others, they gave even their life. So why can't I give my wealth? I'm going to lose it anyway. I'm going to keep my promise. So Bali Maharaj is highlighting very important principles, just as Śrīkracharya was highlighting very important principles. Śrīkracharya was saying, whatever you do, don't jeopardize your material position, even if it involves Vishnu, giving to Vishnu. You've got to watch out for your material position as your number one obligation. That's the Śrīkracharya principle. We don't want that principle influencing our life. We recognize that everything belongs to Krishna. We take what we need to live a life centered on bhakti. We don't want to be the supreme proprietor, the supreme controller. We want to be servants of Krishna. So make sure that in your life, the Śrīkracharya principle has not invaded. First, look at the purse. First, consider the salary, and then somewhere down the line, think about bhakti and devotional service. That's the Śrīkracharya principle, which Bali Maharaj, as a Mahajan, one of the 12 great authorities in devotional service, Bali Maharaj rejected that principle. If it's true, in other words, his concluding argument to Śrīkracharya was, even if it's true that it's Vishnu, why shouldn't I attain eternal fame by giving him what he wants, even if it's true. Of course, Bali Maharaj knows it's true. So the Bali Maharaj principle is different than the Śrīmad principle. The Bali Maharaj principle is everything belongs to Vishnu. He knows this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But it's the Lord having a little fun with me. Rather than just my giving him everything outright, the Lord goes through this whole drama of a Brahmana boy begging. So I'm going to participate in this loving exchange. So remember, Bali Maharaj's response is one based on Krishna prema. He's not being a pragmatic person, but he gives pragmatic reasons. But what's really going on underneath is he knows this Vipra, this Brahmana boy, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes, let me give him everything. So now we have the steps. And as Śrīmad predicted, there would be no scope, no room for the Brahmana boy's third step. This is exactly what Śrīmad warned. So Śrīmad was afraid of this happening. But Bali Maharaj is welcoming it. So that's the difference between a devotee and a materialist. Bali Maharaj took everything as Krishna's mercy. It all belongs to him. If the Lord wants to have some fun taking everything away from me, let him do that. Just like Srila Prabhupada described in his own words that Krishna and he had an argument. He explained once in a talk in Delhi and another place also that ordinarily astrologers had told him he was meant to be one of the richest persons ever in India. His plan was always to carry out the order of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But he thought, let me become rich, because who listens to a poor Indian? If I'm going to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, who's going to listen to a poor Indian? Of course, these days, the billionaires from India have great global influence. But back then, everyone thought, oh, the starving people in India. I remember my mother, when we were eating dinner and not finishing all our food, mother would say, remember the starving people in India. So as I often point out, her tune has changed. Now she says, oh, you're in Melbourne talking to those Indian people. They're very smart. They take all the good jobs. So Bali Maharaj is showing the example how to use everything in Krishna's service. Happily, he's giving everything. He's not concerned about what he's going to get in return. He's a pure devotee. So Srila Prabhupada similarly, in that mood of Bali Maharaj's pure devotion, Prabhupada criticized himself. He even said, I became distracted by business. I thought, let me become a wealthy person, and then everyone will listen to my message. There's no doubt he had about carrying out the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But he thought, let me do it by becoming a rich person. So he said, Krishna and he had an argument. Krishna said, I want you to do it as a poor person with no assets. And Prabhupada was saying, no, I want to do it as a rich person. Who listens to a poor Indian? So he said, Krishna won the argument. He'll do it as a poor person. So all his business plans crumbled. His attempts even to preach in India, they met with such resistance. But then when he boarded the boat, the Jaladuta, to come to the West, That's when his opportunities opened up. After a year of struggle, though, alone in New York City. I know what it's like to live in New York City, but I don't know what it's like to live on your own as a newcomer, experiencing your first North American winter. I have no idea what that could feel like. At the age of 67, landing in New York City with a few rupees. So we are recipients of the extraordinary fortune of Krishna's devotees, especially Srila Prabhupada, who showed how to surrender everything, just as Bali Maharaj is showing. Yes, if it's Vamana Dev, let him, if it's Vishnu, let him take everything. So we need to look in our life to see how much there is that Bali Maharaj principle. He's showing the way. Happily give everything for Krishna's service. He showed that way so dramatically that although he never asked for it, Vishnu became his doorman on the planet Sutala, guarding Bali Maharaj's household. In that way, Bali Maharaj was always with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada is giving us a system of bhakti that we can always be with Krishna, especially by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, you mentioned about the Śrīmad principle of that we have to be always number one, and that's very deeply ingrained in consciousness for many of us. So, how do we deal with this attitude, or how do we deal with our consciousness when we see others doing better than us, and we feel this sense of insecurity or envy?
In devotional service?
Could be even in devotional service, yeah.
Well, it's a big difference whether you're appreciating another devotee's service or you're appreciating a materialist and their temporary material happiness. Which do you mean?
Like devotees doing service better than us, and we feel
That'll
that
always be the case. Get used to it. As I always point out, right now, somewhere in the world of ISKCON, someone is doing a better service than you or me. But nevertheless, Krishna appreciates your efforts. Krishna's Bhakta Vatsala. He's always looking for opportunities to have affectionate exchanges with his devotees. Even devotees in the beginning stages. The Acharyas explained that even as a neophyte, you're getting a whiff of Krishna Prem as experienced in your sadhana practice. There's a whiff, a slight fragrance of Krishna Prem in its very beginning stages. There's something there even for the beginning devotee. And what to speak of for someone who has dedicated their life decade after decade to Krishna's service. They get more than a whiff. But remember Lord Chaitanya, who said, I have no love for Krishna. If you see me crying while chanting Hare Krishna, you should know it's just a show, a drama, a false drama. Because if I actually loved Krishna, I would have died long ago from separation. The proof that I have no love for Krishna is I'm still living. That shows you I'm faking it when I'm crying. So even Mahaprabhu, the greatest bhakta, thinks and presents himself as having no love for Krishna. Others are so much more qualified. In Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, when Narada Muni is approaching Uddhava, because Narada Muni has heard from Ugrasena and the Yadus that Uddhava is the greatest devotee. See, Narada Muni is starting at the earth planet and then going through the heavenly planets and then going to Dwarkadam, looking for who is the greatest devotee. Eventually he'll wind up in Braj. So he's heard from Ugrasena that, because each devotee that Narada approaches deflects the praise. No, I'm not the greatest devotee. How can anyone say that? Consider this, consider that. You can see, anyone can see, I'm not the best devotee. So Ugrasena sent Narada Muni to Uddhava. And Narada Muni presented himself as usual to the next person. Uddhava, I've heard that you are the greatest devotee. And Uddhava started crying. Why was he crying? He was thinking of all the devotees that are better than him. So he was crying. He's showing the real symptoms of a devotee, the symptoms of a real devotee. He's thinking of all the devotees who are so dear to Krishna and how their service is so much better. So in the face of the praise from Narada Muni, Uddhava's crying. But then his transcendental emotions change and he becomes transcendently jealous. Krishna is mine. My service to Krishna is special. It's hard to understand this, how it's spiritual, because it sounds like envy and jealousy. Who are these other servitors? I'm Uddhava. I'm dear to Krishna. But this is a transcendental emotion that has not the slightest tinge of materialism to it, not the slightest tinge of material envy. In fact, that emotion brings the devotee closer to Krishna. But with our impersonalistic tendencies and consciousness, it's hard to understand this. Isn't Uddhava being just plain old envious and jealous? I am Krishna's servant. My service is so valuable. This is an expression of love, pure love. So first, Uddhava is crying. Oh, so many devotees are better than me. I'm thinking of their service. While Narada is glorifying me, I'm thinking of the service of all these other devotees. And then the transcendental emotions take a different turn. And my service is very important. I'm very dear to Krishna. How can he say that without any tinge of false pride, false ego, envy, and jealousy? But these are the emotions of the spiritual world, meant to give Krishna pleasure. Krishna, you're mine. Mamata. The feeling that the Lord is yours, and no matter what rasa you're in, beyond neutrality, you have this notion of mamata. He's my master. Or he's my friend. He's my son. He's my lover. So what Uddhava was feeling brought him closer to Krishna. Just like the gopis, sometimes they are very possessive. Krishna, you should be with me, not her. But that gives Krishna pleasure. It's not jealousy on the material platform. Krishna, why are you with that one? You should be with me. This creates more Krishna bhakti. So these examples show you the personal variegatedness of the spiritual world, especially in Braj Leela. What you would ordinarily consider a negative simply brings about closer connection to Krishna. Anything else? Yes?
You're saying not to be hard on children.
Be sympathetic to the atmosphere of today. I often discuss with Aniruddha Prabhu how our growing up in the 60s and 70s, that compared to now, that was the Satya Yuga. I was just looking at the statistics for the USA. One study has been done that 50% of 12-year-old children in the USA have already seen you know what. The word that begins with a P. 50% at the age of 12. How do you expect a human society to emerge from such degradation? 50% at the age of 12 have already online seen what they shouldn't have been seeing. And then you go up to the age of 17, it's 73%. So this is what, and the parents have no idea what their children are looking at. Oh, I want you to be an IT specialist. Yes, please. Have iPad, have iPhone, have full IT immersion, so you'll be a great success in life. I remember when I would do programs at IIT in Mumbai, and the students would boast that we have the fastest internet connections in India because we're the future technologists, technical scientists. So at IIT, we have the fastest internet connections. But, they'd said, 85% of the internet usage is for looking at things that you shouldn't be looking at. So how do you expect to grow up in such a society and have any kind of sanity? So this is what the children are growing up in. The parents have no idea. Because the parents didn't grow up in such a society. So therefore, when I say don't be so hard on your children, I mean appreciate what they are going through, what they're going to have to go through in order to live in this world. When they go off to university, you don't know what's happening. My mother didn't know what I was doing when I was at university. But she vowed, after you, I'm never sending another child away to university. So have some sympathy and don't be naive what the children growing up today have to cope with. All right? Anything else? Yes. Aniruddha Prabhu. Need one more microphone for these. One for the ladies, one for the men.
How do we move from swan eat, swan world to the ego, or the ego-less, or the servant, the mood of a servant, like we see in Uddhava and the other devotees? How do we move from that competitive, materialistic competitive mood to the devotional competitive mood?
Just like
especially as young devotees, it's how do we make progress in that?
Well, Prabhupada would encourage the competitive sacrifice of devotees for a proper cause. He would land in New York and say, I'm coming from London, I'm coming from Paris, now I see your temple is the best. Everyone would, Jai Prabhupada. Then he would go from New York to Chicago. I've come from Paris, London, New York. Now I'm in Chicago. Your temple is the best. Jai, Prabhupada. So we want to do our best for Krishna's pleasure. At the same time, we should understand that Krishna is the enjoyer of such competition. If we forget that, then we're on the material platform. So just like the Melbourne temple has done extraordinary in the marathon. So you can feel transcendently proud. It's the best. But what about next year? Others will become inspired by your example and start making plans. It's one thing to be the champions, but can you repeat? All right, you repeated the previous year, but do we have a three-peat? There's always something more you can do.
It can be very challenging, though, when somebody who's not as advanced as you beats you.
Someone not as advanced.
How can they do better than me, and they're not as advanced as me?
I remember during my book distribution days, I tried so hard, but practically nothing came of my efforts. I remember my Sankirtan leader, Prabhupada Swami. He was a Brahmachari back then. He nicknamed me the hard luck kid. I would try so hard to distribute books. I had, as I often explain, I had two conflicting emotions. I hated the service, but I was determined to love it because Prabhupada wanted it. So for 2 years, 7 days a week, I go out on book distribution. For 2 years doing nothing. Nothing means, a little bit here, a little bit there. Whereas the big guns, they were roaring. Vaisheshika Prabhu was one of them. And so I said, one day I'll catch up with them, even though it seems so hopeless. So yes, I, like so many of my God brothers and God sisters, would go out on Sankirtan and cry. Oh, I can't do this, but I must. Oh, Krishna, help me. And then one day, I remember, I was in a car park with Bhrigupati Prabhu. I don't know if you know about Bhrigupati. He's now doing book distribution for 51 years. He does a book table in Los Angeles, and in US dollars, he sells minimum per day, $700 US worth of books, sometimes over 1,000. He goes out every day. So there I was, this is 1975, Christmas marathon with Bhrigupati Prabhu in a car park outside New York City. And so I remember we drove up in the car, parked the car. He jumped out immediately, had his book bag all packed. I had to pack my book bag. And so I said, I'm going to do just like the big guns do, just like Vaisheshika Prabhu. Even though my book bag isn't packed, as I'm loading it from the boot of the car, I'm going to approach the first person who walks by me, even though I'm not ready yet. That's what the big guns do. So the first person walked by, I handed the person a hardcover Krishna book. But the person took the book. Another person walked by. I handed the person a hardcover Krishna book. The person took the book. This is back in the time when there were the Back to Godhead magazine distributors, and then there were those who could distribute big books, hardcover books. I wasn't one of the hardcover book distributors. I was distributing small books, But this time I said, I'm going to distribute big books like the big guns. I'll try it. My book bag isn't fully loaded, but still someone's walking past the car. Here, take this. The person took it. Oh, my God. Another person walked by, took the book. Oh, what's happening? Another person, another book. In 10 minutes, I had distributed 10 hardcover books. So I remember Brigupati watching from the other side of the car park. He comes running over. What's going on here? Well, tell me, you got some secret you're hiding? You got some new mantra? What's going on here? I said, I don't know, but I've just done 15 hardcover Krishna books in the space of 15 minutes. I don't know what's going on. All I do know is it's not me. After 2 years of doing nothing, I know I have not the slightest doubt this is not me. Yes, Brigupati still remembers that day. And from that day onward, I was a big book distributor. From one moment to the next, after 2 years of struggle doing nothing. So then I decided, all I have to do is this service the rest of my life. I go back to Godhead so easily. So I was floating out the door on Sankirtan every day for the next 3 months. And then I developed a cough, and a cough, and a cough. And so the temple leaders told me, it looks like you're going to have to change service. Your health is not holding up. The New York winter has really gotten to you. I said, no, I cannot change service. There's only one service. Book distribution is the only solution. No other service can I do. You've got to have sympathy for me. After 2 years of doing nothing, now I'm big time. And now I'm supposed to stop and change my service? So I remember finally I had to give in. The last book I distributed, I was at a bus terminal, and someone walked past me 1 meter away from me, and I had to pray to Krishna, please give me the strength to cross this 1 meter distance to place a book in this person's hand. And the person, I put a 3rd canto Bhagavatam in their hand. They took it. And I knew that's it for me. Right at the time when Prabhupada was angry, where are my books? Where are my books? Where are my books? He was translating, but his book production was way behind. So right at that time, that's when I became sick, and I had to go. The temple leader said, well, looks like you better leave New York City and its winters and go to Los Angeles with the BBT. Right at the time when Prabhupada was demanding, I want all my books produced immediately. So Krishna has his ways of arranging things. I was devastated. Me give up Sankirtan, the only service, for a solitary life of just working on Prabhupada's books 24/7? I remember in my office in LA, the book distributors would be going to the airport, and they were, back then everyone was, Aniruddha Prabhu remembers, everyone was a bit kind of, the Sankirtan spirit was quite exuberant and boisterous, so they would pass underneath my window. Hey, Devamrita, when you coming out with us, huh? What are you doing up there? They had no idea that I'm working on the very books that they're going to distribute. So Krishna appreciates your efforts if you do your best. It may not be that you have the amount of Lakshmi points that others have, but Krishna is in your heart. He knows if you're trying your best or not. All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.